Muted.
Welcome to our webinar, 3 Ways to Build a Knowledge-Able Culture. Our co-sponsor for today's webinar is Vitalyst, a firm that provides organizations and their employees with educational services and support for their technology. Our presenter today is Jackie Beck, Director of Training Services for Vitalyst. Jackie has over 25 years experience in educational development, instructional design, and e-learning, including implementing gamification in virtual learning and on-demand content. And now I'm going to turn things over to Jackie. And Jackie, when you are ready, please begin.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be with you all today. I am a long-term member of the eLearning Guild. I've done a lot of events with the Guild, and they always do a fantastic job. So I'm extremely honored to be part of this webinar today. We are going to cover a lot of great material on building a knowledge-able culture. We're going to define what knowledge-able is, and we're going to share with you 3 distinct ways to make your workforce knowledge-able. We're going to also talk about how you can put these 3 elements together for a winning training strategy. And we do have some fantastic takeaways for you, so I want you to stay on to the end. And we will be addressing questions and answers throughout the session. I've got 2 of my team members manning the question chat pod for you all today. So feel free to ask questions as I go through the presentation, and my team is behind the scenes working diligently to get you those answers. Any questions that do not get answered during the session today, we will follow up and we will get back to you. And I will take some questions verbally at the end. So let's get started. What is knowledgeable? I think we all know what that is, especially being in the educational space. Knowledgeable is someone who's very intelligent and well-informed. Much like our audience today, I know you're all very well-informed in the space of e-learning. But what is knowledge-able? Knowledge-able is when you have the ability to find information quickly. And with today's technology, there is just a vast amount of information that is at our fingertips. We can simply use devices and our computers to basically get answers to anything we want in seconds. So what we want you to do now to put our fingers to the test is we're going to have a little knowledge-able test, a little test question here. I would like everyone out there to use your smartphone, and I want you to use your search engine. It could be Bing, it can be Google, it can be whatever search engine you prefer. And I want you to do a search on the actor who plays Sheldon Cooper on Big Bang Theory. Now, some of you may watch that show and some of you may have never seen it before. But if you use your smartphone to actually Google this, you should be able to find the answer very quickly. So Karen, I'm going to ask you to open up our poll so that we can get feedback from the audience on who is the actor who plays Sheldon Cooper on the Big Bang Theory. So if you would, just select your answer in our poll, just having a little bit of fun so that we can see, so you can put knowledge-able to use right inside this session, right out of the gate. We'll give you all a couple minutes, couple seconds to answer that and find the answer. So again, I'm asking you to multitask here. Go ahead and look up in your search engine who plays Sheldon Cooper on Big Bang Theory and get us an answer and plug that into the poll. So we'll wait a few more seconds and then I will ask Karen to share those results with us.
All right, we have most everyone has responded, so I'm going to go ahead and share those responses out. As you can see, nobody voted for Kevin Bacon. Nobody voted for Zac Efron. Michael Wallace got 3% and Jim Parsons got 97%.
So there you have it. I think our test shows us right out of the gate that we're all knowledge-able. So now what I want to do is spend the rest of our time this hour really giving you some insight for how you can really design and apply this knowledge able, these ways into your culture and workforce. So let's meet the modern learner. The modern learner are completely overwhelmed. These workers spend 41% of their time doing things that do not allow them to get their work done. In the early days of the internet, these folks were online about 5 times a day. Now we see them using their mobile devices almost 27 times a day. So they are online a lot. The modern worker is also very distracted. They're distracted by the millions of websites, the apps, different video clips. So we have a very distracted workforce out there. People in the workforce are most likely to unlock their smartphone 9 times an hour. So our previous slide was 5 times a day. Now with the distracting, we see people using their cell phones 9 times an hour, almost every 5 minutes. They're just being bombarded with things that are interrupting their workflow. The other area that we need to be concerned about is today's workforce. We have a lot of millennials that grew up gaming and have a lot of interactivity. These folks are very impatient. They do not want to watch a video that's much longer than 4 minutes. And online designers, for all of my instructional designers out there, you have to be concerned that we have to get their attention quickly, tell them what they're in for, and help them get the answers to their questions immediately. Because most people out in the workforce will actually complain on the surveys through the HR department that they do not have enough time to do their job. But we know the causes to be considered are being overwhelmed, distracted, and impatient. So with that, what we have to be cognizant of as training and learning professionals is that the workforce out there, they only have 24 minutes a week, about 1% of their workforce, to really focus on training. So that bodes us into a huge challenge. How are we going to combat this challenge of having 24 minutes to get someone and give them the information they need, get it to them quickly so they can be productive in their job and get answers? The number one way to build a knowledge-able culture is to create habit-forming best practices so that these new behaviors become automatic. You want to make sure that you're writing clear and simple instructions. You want to be transparent about the efforts that's required to engage with the learning. And you want to show samples and post results. People are more likely to come back if they know that other people have gone through this and they see they were successful. We want to create a sticky learning path, which means that we want people to be able to get in, get the information quickly, and it doesn't have to be a lot of clicks to get there, and we want them to be able to return easily. And then finally, you're going to see with the 3 ways that we share with you today, reward is going to be critical. So let's talk about some things to consider to create this habit-forming learning. What's going to deliver the value for your learning portal? In my experience, we want to give them the answers they need quickly, to give them the information so they can apply the skills and go back to the applications and learn it and apply it. What are you going to use with the feedback to drive success? When you get feedback in your portal and from the learner, we need to take this feedback and make it applicable to the future of the learning portal. If we're getting feedback that the modules are too long, we need to shorten them. So this feedback's very critical. Not always will a point system give us all the information we need to really evolve our portal into something that's a little bit more robust. A point system is great when you have a rating scale. I know when you go and you may watch a YouTube video, you can see ratings and thumbs up. And when a video may have a lot of thumbs up, you know that other people found it really useful. So people will buy the time to go in and actually watch the video. So we want to make sure that if we do have a point system or a like and dislike, is that going to give us what we need for the short-term success, or do we need a little more in-depth feedback to do something for the long haul? We also want to think about, with our learning, about developing a community. This community is a great way to make your learning become viral. People talk about it, people bond with one another, and they want to come back and be part of this, especially when it's something that's driving rewards and it gives them what they need to do their jobs and to get their performance reviews as high as they need to be. We also want to make sure we have an elevator pitch. Make sure it's short, sweet, and to the point. And as I said earlier, they know what they're getting into. We don't want to not give them a runtime, and the learning could be 20 minutes long, and the answer they need is at the 18-minute mark. Not many people are going to stay engaged in a video for that long. So you really want to have an elevator pitch, show them the learning objectives right at the front, and then let them delve in, get the information they need. And one of the other things that we want to focus on is creating super fans. This goes in alignment with the community. The super fans are going to be our folks that are out there really helping us make it viral, giving us that marketing that we need because of word of mouth, and they become passionate because they have seen success with the system. Let me take you over to a portal and show you an example. So if I have a shortcut on my desktop, this is our Help Me Now hub. We have over 100,000 learning objects in this portal. If I want to do a keyword search on, say, pivot tables, I can come over here and click the search button. Immediately, I am seeing the results of pivot tables. I can come over here and see that, do I want to see pivot tables for Access, for Excel, for Google Sheets? And over here I can see, do I want to watch a video? Do I want to read a how-to guide? Or do I want to send an email to one of my colleagues after I view it? So this creates that viral environment that I got the answer I was looking for, and maybe 3 people on my team who are also doing pivot tables in Excel could learn from this. We make it really easy for them to come into the portal, get the learning. So if I launch this, now you can see it's only 1 minute and 17 seconds to learn about pivot tables. Quick, short, sweet, to the point. We come in, we get the information on pivot tables, on how to do a report, and we can go right into Excel and apply those skills. If I want to build on my learning, there's other assets associated with that keyword that may be helpful to me. And I'll talk about searching in a little bit, but this is all very important as you're putting together your learning portal. Short learning objects, tell them what they're in for, and show them exactly all of the options that they have with that keyword. So with that, when you're building habit-forming tips, we want to talk to our instructional designers out there. Designing that, you want to design an experience that evolves over time. The portal I just showed you did not come to life with 100,000 learning objects overnight. This was a long time work in progress that we built and we developed and we designed, and we're constantly keeping it updated with very small, short chunks of learning so people can get the information they need and get back to work. You want to tell them what they're in for. So you basically want to list that runtime so that people can say, well, I only want to watch 1 to 3 minutes. I don't want that 18-minute learning module on pivot tables. I want to just know how to build the report. Then you want to take the data that you're compiling from the feedback, and you want to see where the learners are dropping off and where they're most heavily engaged. That feedback is critical because it helps us build models so that we continue to strive to build learning content that's valuable to the people that are using it. When you launch your pilots, I always like to be part of the pilot to test my own system, because I like to put myself in the learner's seat and really see what the learning experience is like, and then talk about that with my team. You want to get the feedback. If you can communicate with people without having a survey, surveys are great, but it's also really nice to talk to people and learn about that experience. And then finally, we want to have you continually improve and refresh the content. Now, our Learning Hub has a lot of information about software products, but we do keep some of the older products on there because some of our clients have not upgraded to the newer versions. But we can see that the most viewed content is the most popular software products that are on the market. If there's content that hasn't been viewed in, say, 6, 9, or 12 months, it would be a good idea that you can remove that or you can archive it to another system so that the information that you're putting out there is always fresh. Let's talk about some techniques. So habit forming, we're still on our #1 way to build a knowledge-able culture. Onboarding techniques, you want to create an experience where the learner's getting smarter. I showed you that there were other learning objects below the pivot table reports. Those other learning objects allow me to look at that 1 minute, but then drill down a little bit deeper and maybe learn some other things about pivot tables. And you want to constantly design that way so that your learners get smart and they have successes so that they can help market it to other people. You always want to piggyback on the existing great habits and great things you're doing, but then look at ways that you can build deeper habits. Reward programs are a great way to do that, and I'm going to talk about them when we get to our second way to build a knowledge-able culture. The data doesn't lie. As my boss tells me, that data takes all the emotion out of decision making, and that couldn't be a truer statement. The data will not lie. Look at the content with the high engagement and build your models around the success stories of the portal. And then finally, optimizing your search is extremely important. We know in the e-learning industry that we have SCORM as one of our standards. SCORM is the Shareable Content Object Reference Model that allows us to have metadata on our learning content. This metadata is key for when we do search optimization. So you want to think about that and make it easy to find and rank by the keyword. You saw me plug in pivot tables and it showed me the results for 3 programs: Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft Access. So not just pivot tables with one application, it was everything related to pivot tables. So these optimizing the search is critical with your learning strategy. Okay, we want to take a minute to get your feedback. We went through our first way to build a knowledge-able culture. And what I'd like you to do is share your information. Are you doing anything in your learning environment to build any habit-forming examples? So Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you to instruct them through the question pane.
All right, so what we would like you to do is just post your comments to this. What habit-forming examples do you have in your organization? Just post it as in the questions chat pane to us. We'll be able to see that, and we're kind of go through and see where we have some coordination. So go ahead and post. Do you have any habit? And if you don't have any habit forming, say, hey, I'm willing to learn. We don't have anything that's really habit forming, but we'd also like to get that feedback as well.
We love to hear from you all. I want to keep it engaging and interactive as we go through and spend our time together today. Okay, so the question chat pane is open throughout the hour. Feel free to put that information in there. We love hearing from you. Okay, our second way to build a knowledge-able culture is going to be gamification. There are so many great things about gamification that's going to help us to really enhance people's loyalty and participation. So I'm not going to ask you to build the next Xbox game. That's not what gamification is. It's basically the application of game design elements and game principles in non-game contexts. Basically, it's set up to help us improve our organizational productivity. So let's talk about gamification elements. What we want to do with gamification, there's three things that really help, are the baseline of gamification, and it's PBLs, points, badges, and leaderboards. And you can actually add these points, badges, and leaderboards into your learning so that you foster competition, you're rewarding positive behavior. If people are coming back to your portal every day and doing that habit forming of coming in, visiting the site, looking at your learning, then you want to reward that positive behavior. And we'll talk about things and ways you can reward positive behavior in a little bit. But this healthy competition and making learning a little bit more fun by gamifying it is a great way to really engage people. I'm going to use two of my favorite examples on organizations that use this gamification strategy, and one of them is the Marriott organization. I think we all are familiar with hotel stays, and when you're a part of their loyalty program, their rewards program, you get points. And when you acquire a certain amount of points, you get free hotel night stays. And when you have a certain amount of nights per year, you elevate your status from a silver to a gold to a platinum. And people show their loyalty to these organizations because they want those free hotel, they want those tangible rewards. So we know that this works. There are ways to make this applicable in your training strategy. And we know that a lot of your top organizations in the world have completely embraced gamification. So let's talk a little bit about why and how this is so successful. I have two examples here I want to share with you today. Zynga launched the game Angry Birds a few years ago. It's one of the huge success stories of gaming because in 41 days, without virtually doing any marketing, they were able to have 100 million registered users. I attended a session at the University of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia on gamification, and one of the professors said this is the equivalent, 11 billion hours a year. He said, if we break this down, this is equivalent to having enough manpower to build the Panama Canal in one day. That's how many people they got into this game and the response rate and how engaged people were. Online games are growing faster than any other game, and 44% of us here in the United States, we've played a mobile game in the last month. So it's a very familiar platform for people. Everyone's kind of doing it. Gamification is a huge buzzword. But one of the other things that's really successful with gamification that really caught my eye is the data on Xbox. I have two sons, both play Xbox. The fact that Xbox, their average user has 57 hours of engagement per month. If we could get those kind of stats in our training programs, we would really, really be doing something great. The graphic I showed you earlier showed us that we only have 24 minutes a week. That equates to less than 100 minutes a month. And here we see that these games where there's no reward, people are not getting paid to do Xbox, but they elevate their status from a private to a major to a general and different things in these games, and that becomes very lucrative to the person playing the game and engaged with the software. So that's what we're trying to do here in the training and the educational industry. We're trying to apply these practices. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen and ask you all, how many of you are using gamification today with your online strategy? So Karen, if you'd please open that poll for me.
Okay, so we have the poll open, and if you're using it, yes, no, if you're not using it, but if you have plans for that, let us know if you have plans by implementing it soon. And of course, if you don't have business on board with the gamification, let us know that too. So we're going to leave that poll open for a little bit and kind of see how things go here.
Thank you. Everyone, please engage. We want your feedback. It'll make the event that much better, having all of us in tune with the Q&A and the polls.
All right, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes here, a couple more seconds, I should say. I'm seeing that the answers have slowed down. I think we're going to open up the poll and show our results.
Great.
All right, so 25% of you are using gamification, 39% are not using any gamification, 22% don't have any plans to use gamification, and 14% are going to use gamification, but you haven't implemented it yet. So it's kind of across the board there, pretty evenly split in a lot of ways.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for your feedback, because that helps us here because we can see where folks are in this whole gamification. I want to give you some more tips about that. So what motivates people at work? We want to talk about extrinsic motivators. So I've worked with a few clients that have really implemented this in a big way. And prizes are a great thing, but a lot of people will say, and I actually did a gamification session in June in San Diego at the Bank Trainers Conference. And some of the feedback I got after my presentation was, gamification's great, but what if you don't have, quote, prizes to give away? And one of the great things is that praise and putting someone's picture on a website, we have an internal television network here at Vitalist, and we put my coworkers and my peers, they get their pictures on the monitor when great things happen. And it's just a really nice way to pat people on the back and say, great job, we appreciate the great work that you're doing. So that's one thing. You can give days off, and what I've seen with some of the pharmaceutical industries that I've worked with is that they'll give points and gift cards for the corporate store. So you can go down and get a baseball hat, a golf shirt, an umbrella with the logo on it. So they do give out free gifts that are, again, related to the internal company store. I've also seen folks that give away conference passes. So those that engage with the learning the most and acquire the top ratings and are atop the leaderboard, you can see that they're becoming more productive, they're using the learning, and they may give out conference passes for those folks to go to any conference of their choice in the US, and the company will send them there because they've participated in so much learning. So these are just some ideas that you can kind of take away. You will have access to my slides at the end, so you don't have to write anything down, but these are just some ideas for you. Also, what can you give for those PBLs, the points, badges, and leaderboards? As we talked about, the Marriott gives you the points when you stay at their hotel. They give you the free nights when you acquire a certain amount of nights. You can give points for all of the options that you see here, because when people are participating and engaging with your websites and your learning portals, they're learning about your business, your products, and your services. And that's a good thing. So these are all, again, more ideas that you can use with your gamification. You don't need a game developer on your staff. Most learning management systems have badges built in, so you can really apply this right out of the gate. Our third way to build a knowledgeable culture is design. My instructional designers that are with us today, we want to build small learning objects, granular bites of knowledge that can be stored and recycled. So reusable learning objects, I've got some resources at the end of my slide deck with some different articles that have been written on this topic, but you want to basically make it a self-contained chunk of instruction. That little video clip I brought up, that was self-contained. That minute and 3 seconds had everything you needed to know to build a pivot table report. So it's a small self-contained chunk of instruction. You want to keep these short and sweet to the point, 1 to 3 minutes in length. And you never want to have more than 1 or 2 learning objectives. Sometimes you may need to pair the learning objectives together because you don't want to have that process separated. It goes hand in hand. So sometimes you do have to make them a little bit longer and pair the learning objectives together. but you don't want to build the 20, 30, and 60-minute course that's standalone because people just will not watch them. Some of the benefits of reusable learning objects are that they can be used a lot of different ways. We recently built a learning object for one of our clients, and we used it in their learning management system for on-demand content. We used it in a webinar to demonstrate the process perfectly, and our stand-up trainers used it in classroom instruction so that we had consistency across the board on how this process was demonstrated. So we built it into a small 3-minute clip, and everybody used the same asset in classroom learning, virtual learning, and on-demand learning. And now you have that consistency. So a great way to really architect your solution and use learning objects in different modalities. It also allows you to build a support center and an end-to-end training solution. Reusable learning objects allow you to stack them. So as you saw, there were 4 learning objects that matched the word pivot tables when I selected it for Excel. We can build and stack these, and you can really build a full curriculum with these reusable learning objects and have people go through it for an end-to-end solution or an on-demand support system. So again, you want to make sure that each one of these has its own learning objectives, and it allows you to get the information quickly, apply the skill, and then get back to work. Because as we saw in our graphic earlier, 24 minutes a week, it doesn't give us a whole lot of time to really educate our learners. Here are some tips. You want to use that metadata, as I said earlier, with the search engine optimization because we want to be able to find it quickly. I plugged in the word pivot tables, I clicked search, and only the relevant content came up and was listed on my hub site. So again, metadata is a great thing. It's part of the SCORM standard. And if you're using an authoring tool that is SCORM compliant and a learning management system that's SCORM compliant, you will have the ability to use metadata. Another tip is a lot of times when you record audio, the audio track is not searchable. Some authoring tools will allow you to embed the text or the script or the spoken word. When you embed that script into the e-learning or into the video, it now gives you the ability to do a text-based search on the narration. So that's another tip, that you can embed the spoken word into a text file and embed it into your authoring tool. And your script always wants to have a clear and concise message. You want to only record the important information. So short, sweet, and to the point. Okay, Karen, we're going to go back to the question pane for our LMS question.
All right, everyone. So in our question chat pane, please share with us what LMS you're currently using. And if you aren't using an LMS, also tell us that too. Give us an insight as to what you're using. So we're getting a lot of, oh, here we go. We're getting a number of LMS coming in, all
Great,
different. All
Cornerstone,
different.
Moodle, yep. Great.
Udemy, which is interesting. Save a Cloud.
SumTotal.
CE Manager. Yep.
This is fantastic. We see a lot of Cornerstone, SuccessFactors, SumTotals, great learning management systems. Cornerstone has a fantastic gamification option within it with badges, leaderboards, and the whole PBL. So those of you using Cornerstone and some of these other learning management systems, they do have the PBL option for gamification. So you'll be able to implement that immediately. Okay, thank you so much, Karen. Let's talk about some final thoughts and kind of recap today. We talked about 3 ways to make your employees knowledge able. Okay, number 1, just to review and recap, you want to create learning that becomes habit forming. Okay, make it easy to find, easy to use, and create the habits that help employees learn. You want them socializing it, so you definitely want to make it easy so that people are talking about it. Number 2, You want to gamify your strategy and create that rewards program. It will spawn the loyalty and get those repeat visitors back to your learning portal. Marriott does it probably better than anyone, your frequent flyer mileage. These people, the Marriott organization doesn't have gamers developing programs. It's just a loyalty program that calculates nights that they stay, where they stay, and points that are achieved. It's very simple, it's basic data. But you turn it in and you build this reward program, and now all of a sudden you're creating loyalty for your brand. So just a great way that you can implement that without thinking, oh, I have to go out and hire gaming developers. You won't need to do that. And third, my instructional designers out there, architect your learning platform with the reusable learning objects. Short, sweet, and to the point. As you saw when I did that search, we have over 100,000 learning objects on our Help Me Now portal. Those learning objects can be built into what we call Skill Builder, an end-to-end curriculum that has only the learning objects needed for that specific task or process. Reusable learning objects gives you a lot of flexibility in your architecture and the way you deploy your learning, and it gives you a lot of options with a support system and an end-to-end training solution. So think short, sweet, and I always like to say bite size is the right size. Okay, let's remember that our learners only have 24 minutes a week for learning. As I just said, bite size is the right size, and you want to listen to the feedback and always evolve the learning so that you're sharpening the saw. As they say in Stephen Covey, one of my favorite authors, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sharpen the saw. Look and see what's working, build your models around the success stories of what is working, and always evolve the portal with fresh content. Okay, knowledgeable. It's the key difference to creating not just a knowledgeable workforce, but a knowledge-able organization. Everyone on our webinar today, you proved to us when you did the search and realized that Jim Parsons is the star of Big Bang Theory. I don't think that everyone watches that show, but you were able to find that information quickly and it was at your fingertips. That's what we want to do with our training strategy. We want to build a strategy that creates habit-forming best practices. We give rewards and gamify it, and we have short, reusable learning objects. Because remember, our workers are overwhelmed, they're distracted, and they're impatient, so we don't have a lot of time. Our team here at Vitalyst created an infographic on all of the key points that I talked about today. And you will be receiving that infographic. We'll be emailing that to you just for attending today. So I want to thank you for that. And my information's on the screen. I want to thank everyone for coming. And now I want to open up the Q&A and the questions to see what kind of questions are coming in. Karen, do I have any questions that I need to answer?
Yes, Jackie, one of the questions is, what are your preferred tools for creating reusable learning objects?
That's a great question. So reusable learning objects, a lot of great tools out there. I'm not married to any one vendor. I do like Adobe Captivate. There's Articulate, Storyline. All of these tools, as I said earlier, are SCORM compliant, which means when you package them up and load them into your learning management system, there's metadata. So you'll be able to find them in the learning management system. I always like to tell folks when they're building an authoring tool and then they're plugging it into the LMS that think of the SCORM standard as the card catalog at the library. If I were to walk into the New York Public Library, there's 3 million books. How do I find the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? I go over to in the old days, it was a card catalog where you actually had a file card. Now it's a digital system where they have that information. You do a search, the book has a reference number, and you go find it. Same type of thing with this type of learning with authoring tools. That SCORM standard is going to give you the ability to embed the metadata and then plug it into your LMS so that you can find the content in your library. So great question. My top tools, Adobe Captivate, Articulate Storyline, Lectora, all fantastic authoring tools. I love them all. You have to look and make sure that they are SCORM compliant. Karen, any other questions?
Yeah, we do. That is really great. Good tools to be using. The other question we have, another question is, for instructional design, what program or programs do you use for rapid prototyping and storyboarding?
Great question. So instructional design, actually have one of my instructional designers in our Q&A pod. We love PowerPoint for rapid prototyping and for storyboarding. And the reason we love PowerPoint, that clean canvas allows you to bring images, move them anywhere on the screen, create templates, and then it also allows you to embed the notes or the spoken word, the script, into that note section. And tools like Adobe Presenter, when you publish it, the notes or the script, the spoken word, gets published in a sidebar so that you can actually make that content 508 compliant if anyone's on our call from the government where you have to adhere to 508 standards. You actually have the ability to embed that spoken word into the script, publish directly from rapid development tools like Articulate and Adobe Presenter, publish that content, and immediately that spoken word is in the sidebar, giving someone who may have a hearing disability accessible content because they can read the spoken word and it's already embedded. So hands down, my go-to app for storyboarding and rapid prototyping with any e-learning or training project is definitely going to be PowerPoint. It's just fantastic the way you can move slides around and whatnot. Another great question. Thanks, Karen. Anything else?
Yes, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I echo your comments about PowerPoint is really great for the rapid prototyping. We do have a couple questions. Can you go a little more in depth about what you mean by 24 minutes of learning a week?
Yeah, so there was a white paper published by Josh Bersin and Deloitte Consulting. He writes, and he's part of that organization now. And they basically came up that because the workers are so overwhelmed, distracted, impatient from those graphics that I put up earlier in the presentation, it only gives us that the average worker only can spend about 24 minutes a week on learning and training content because they're just so overwhelmed. The other thing with being distracted and impatient goes hand in hand. And part of that graphic, all of that content and the research I did on that came from Deloitte Consulting and Josh Bersin's white paper on that. So I can give you the resources and you can really read and delve into what he's talking about with the modern learner.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, that's really great. So those reusable learning objects and getting those habit-forming behaviors into your training are really critical when you only have that short amount of time. There is another question about tools. What tools do you recommend for making content 508 compliant?
Great question. I've done a lot of work in the government space, and 508 compliant is so easy if you use Adobe Presenter with PowerPoint as the baseline authoring tool. You put the script in the note section, and when you publish it, I've even gone as far in the Adobe Presenter interface to change the word of notes to 508 compliant in the tab, and I've actually customized the UI, the interface, so that it reads 508 compliant so folks can click on that if they don't have access to speakers to hear the spoken word, and if they can't hear, they'll need to read along with each slide. So hands down, my go-to product for 508 compliant e-learning development is definitely Adobe Presenter with PowerPoint as the baseline authoring. Thanks, Karen.
Great. And then there were a couple of comments about the habit-forming design, some of the tips that you had given everybody. Perhaps we could sort of review some of those. There was a lot of people who really wanted to get a little more information about some of those habit-form things you had.
Absolutely. So in my slide deck, I have a full slide dedicated to the habit forming design tips, and they are: design the experience to evolve over time, create short chunks of learning, tell them what they're in for, time, and the learning objectives. So you want to give them the run time. As I showed you with our portal, if I jump over here again, our portal, when we designed this, 1 minute and 17 seconds, and I can basically click on play and it will walk me through, and I have the other options here. So you want to keep that in mind. You also want to use all of the feedback and learn when people are dropping off and when the engagement peaks. So in your design, you want to look at the data on these learning objects and say, are they watching all minute and 17 seconds, or are they dropping off after 30 seconds? So you want to look at your data and be part of that. When you pilot your portals and you start them out from scratch, when you do your pilot, you want to make sure you get feedback from the participants. And I'm a big fan of speaking and not emailing and doing surveys on everything. So talk with the pilot participants and really get a feel for what they liked. You want to continually improve and refresh the content so that everything and anything that you have in that portal is relevant to learning. And finally, you want to just make sure you always remove outdated content. You want to create an experience where your learner gets smarter. Use other learner success stories to help market it. When someone types positive feedback, put it on the site. I found this pivot table to be extremely helpful and informative. This was great. And then they see it's got a 5-star rating, or it has, 150 thumbs up. They're more likely to view it when you've got this published right with the learning object, because you're using other learners' successes to market this to new learners. And then you want to reward repeat learners who come back frequently. And we talked about that with gamification. But that rewards program is really, really going to be mission critical. And optimize your searching. Make sure you're using metadata, the SCORM compliancy, so that people can find that information quickly and get right into the learning, see what it is they need to do, and then minimize it and go right into Excel and apply that right to the pivot table. Any other questions, Karen?
I just wanted to make the comment about Adobe Presenter and the 508 compliant tip that you gave us there. That's wonderful. I sat there and wrote that down for myself because that is such a great thing to use. I have also posted in our questions chat pane your article that you wrote for Learning Solutions, our magazine, in regards to reusable learning objects. So anyone can look there for that. Yes, it's great. So is anyone have any other additional questions for us? Because we are almost at the end of our time, and if we did not get to your question, be rest assured that we've captured your question, and we will have the team at Vitalist, hopefully answer that for you. And as we are recording this session, we will be sending out a link to the recording. Next week, Vitalist will be sending out an email with a link to the recording and a link to the slide deck here that has these wonderful resources here that Jackie has provided for us, and these resources here where she did get some of the information for this presentation. And in additional, because you have attended, she is also providing you with that great infographic, kind of distilling everything down in the presentation into that small chunk of learning for us to look at to see those 3 ways: the habit forming, the gamification, and of course the reusable learning objects. So those 3 things are going to help your culture really become knowledge able. And with that, I don't see any other questions coming in. That so if we don't have any other questions.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We've really enjoyed working with the Guild on this. I've got a lot of articles I've written for them over the years This is a fantastic organization, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Thanks so much, Karen, for your help and your producing services today.
Thank you, Jackie. And I just want to thank you for your time in putting this presentation together for us. This was a great chunk of information to really sink our teeth into. We really appreciate that you co-sponsored this and gave us this information for our members. And I do want to thank our participants today for sharing their time with us in going through some of this material. So for that, from the Guild, thank you very much. And of course, we do want to thank Citrix once again for providing us this platform, GoToWebinar. If you'd like to get in contact with Jackie, we have put her email in the chat pod, as well as learning more about Vitalist, which we also put in the chat pod too, where you can go and browse what they have for offerings on their website. So thanks again, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.